I want to chat at so Josiah and I had a really nice conversation today. Josiah, why don't you come on the call? You there? Is Josiah still with us?
Yeah,
There he is.
mhm.
Josiah, hey man, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Cool. Um, so Josiah had his first appointment Friday, and so we talked through it. And what kinds of things, after talking to me, what kinds of things did you learn about how you could have improved?
Well, first things first was about the names. That was one big one. So I got the beneficiaries, but I didn't get the names. So I couldn't use the names in order to like get that emotion involved and build that more pain finding. And one big thing was the bonding and rapport. So one thing I failed to do was really was ask her those questions to get to know her more. Because when Alex was asking me uh like things about her, I couldn't really say exactly like the things that she enjoys doing, the people she cares about. I couldn't really give a straightforward answer about that because I failed to do the bonding and rapport part of things. And when it came to the quotes, this was a big one. So I didn't give her three options. I gave her one. And also I I failed to uh I gave her the death. I didn't give her the death benefit. I gave her a price first. So I gave her the price first. I said about $40 a month. And then when she heard the death benefit, that's what kind of like turned everything off. The death benefit was, I believe, was about 16,000 for her.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that kind of like shut everything off. And
Well,
she kind of like ran
okay, to
away.
be fair though, I mean, you kind of asked her what kind of budget that she wanted to be in.
Yeah.
She said around $40. So when he locked in the $40 in the quoting tool, it was only about $15,000 of insurance with Living Promise. And I double checked that quote and he quoted it properly, And so that turned her off because she only got 15,000 for $40, which makes you think, you know what, maybe she was looking for a term policy. She thought she could get more, or, so I have to say it's not entirely like here, you know, the stuff you did good, dude, was you got in there, you booked the appointment and you went on the appointment. She showed up. So something you did on your phone call made her want to be there for you. Okay. So I think that is like a win, right? Like, most people, their first few appointments, they get no showed, no showed, no showed. They come back to me, it's like, Alex, these leads suck, or Alex, I suck, or it's like, no, man, that's just part of the deal. So you booked an appointment and you went on, she showed up. So to me, dude, that is a win. Okay. So she showed up. So you did something right on the phone call, right? And then you went in there and, everyone's brand new, not comfortable, right? You probably weren't comfortable. Not that, I mean, you've been in the insurance business with other agencies. I'm sure this wasn't your first appointment, but it's your first appointment with us and, with our lead program. And, you're always trying to test everything. And I think you did a great job getting in there and then had the conversation. And, it obviously you didn't make the sale, but you know what, as we talked through it, it's like, you know what, I don't know that she would have been she would have been a sale anyway, even if Mark Dobbins got in there, right? Maybe, I don't know. I don't want to second guess it per se, but kudos to you. You started, talking to her. Yeah, you could ask more questions to find out more about her. The pain finding, we talked through that and, finding more reasons. Um, Josiah did the typical, like the one question pain finding, right, Josiah? What what did
Yeah.
what did you ask her? Or how did you ask her that to find her, you know?
To find the pain.
Yeah.
So I asked her, uh, I didn't ask her why she needed it. I asked her, hmm, give me 1 second real quick.
Yeah, that's all right.
since I'm being put on the spot right now, it's kind of like slipping my mind.
Yeah, that's all right. It happens to
So
me all the time, and I don't have a good excuse. I think I'm just trying to recall our conversation. It's something like, why did you, or what was it? Yeah, I think you said something about why did you send this in, or was
oh
some,
yeah, yes. I asked her like why was she looking for insurance, or like why does she need it? You feel like she needed it. And she said to pay so her kids can pay off the funeral when she passed. And that's like a typical answer that everyone gives. So that wasn't really, I couldn't really do much with that. And
yeah. So he just kind of did what really a lot of new agents do is, okay, that sounds good. It's like it's the canned answer that agents want to hear, but it's not what the agent needs to hear. The agent needs to hear, the emotional reason why they need it. And so good questions. And this is really good to go over, Josiah. I mean, questions to ask when someone says that, well, I want to make sure my daughters don't have to pay for the funeral. So there's so many things you can ask, but when you're first time in front of a client, you don't think to ask these questions. So these are some of the go-to questions, man. So everyone take notes. Okay. So they see something like this, like, oh, okay. So I always restate what they say. It's like, so you want to make sure that your daughters don't have to come up with the money to pay for your funeral. And here's what's great about that. So when you stop, and they will feel compelled to answer a question that you didn't ask. See, you repeat what they said. So what I'm hearing you say is that you just want to make sure that your daughters don't have to come up the money to pay for your funeral. And you shut up. And she'll say, well, yeah, I just, they're going to come up with another reason, right? They're going to come up with another answer. Yeah, funerals are expensive, and and everything they say is will give you another clue of what to ask next, right? So because Josiah didn't find out what the names of the beneficiary was, here's a great reason to ask. It's like, oh, your daughters. So tell me about your daughters. What are their names? Okay. Mariah and Cindy. I don't know, whatever. So now he's got the key names. So like, for those of you that are parents, if someone says Athen or Zoe or Maddie, it's just like when someone mentions my children's names, it hits the part of my brain that I love my children. So it's almost like tapping on my heartstrings because I love my children when I use my children's names. You know what I mean? And so when you use those names all the time, it's a pleasing thing for a parent to hear their children's names in a good context, right? Not in a bad context, but still. So, say it's Cindy and Martha. I don't know. Cindy and Martha. Oh, so Cindy and Martha. So how old is Cindy and Martha? Well, Cindy's 27, Martha's 24. I think that were the ages, right? She's just right around there in their 20s.
yeah.
Right. So here's another good question. Oh, okay, that's great. So what do they do for work? And she'll say, well, my daughter's working driving forklifts for this company, and then my other shout out to Shay, and then my other daughter, she's trying to break into real estate. Oh, okay, all right, great. So you want to make sure that Cindy and Martha don't have to come up with the money. Here's a good. Okay, this is called negative reversing. Okay, so I'm teaching you questioning techniques. So negative reverse is when you start talking the client in a not negative way. It's called negative reversing because you're going the opposite. Like, we want to sell the client, but this is not selling the client. It's like selling the client by not selling the client. Okay, I don't know. I wish I had a whiteboard to show you what I mean, but it's like not by selling the client by not selling him. What I mean by that is it's people call it takeaway. It's not a takeaway, but you're going the other way. You're not trying to sell them. So when you find out what they do for work, you can say something like, oh, well, I'm sure they probably make enough money that if you died, that when you die, I'm sure that between the two of them, they can come up with the $15,000-$20,000 to, pay for your funeral. I just shut up. And I do it. I'm sincere. I don't sound sarcastic. I know Alex can get sarcastic, but this is not sarcastic Alex. This is the nurturing Sandler sales Alex that says, wow, I'm sure they make enough money. They could probably pay for your funeral. And I just shut up. And so what's she going to say? You know what, Alex, you're right. They make Josiah, by the way, this is a line of questioning that could maybe have turned her, right? I'm sure they got a lot of money. They'll probably be able to do it. Oh no, I wouldn't want them to do that. Oh, okay. You wouldn't want them to do that? What do you mean? Well, I don't want them to have to come out of their own pocket for my funeral. Oh, okay. So that's the line of questioning. So here's where I would also go. So now, funeral. So I would ask her, so what have you ever been involved in planning a funeral? Did you have to bury your parents? Are your parents still alive? Right. And I just shut up. And she could say, oh, yeah. Yeah. And I would go, well, how much did that cost? And they'll just validate for me what a funeral cost. If they've never done it, now I've never been involved in a funeral. Well, from the people they've done funerals. I mean, how much do you think it costs? Like I have a number. I know the number. You should always know the number. Well, it's expensive. Well, yeah. I mean, if you want a classy funeral, it'd be in the 20, 25,000, 30,000 range, but you probably don't want to have to make your daughters pay for that. What do you think? Just kind of a standard funeral. Oh, maybe 15,000. Well, that's what I would have said, 12 to 15,000. Wow. So you want to make sure your daughters don't have to, well, do they have credit cards? Like you think I'm joking. No, I'm serious. It's like, well, they could probably put on a credit, split it on credit cards. It's like what, 7,000, 7,500 each. They probably have enough credit card room potentially. Like what I'm saying is I'm not trying to play with you here. I'm just saying that like, if you decide to think about it tonight, you decide not to go forward with this tonight, and then tomorrow morning you don't have a heart attack, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that scenario that, what would they do? Like, you tell me, what would Cindy and Martha do? Just shut up. Silence is golden. Silence is one of the greatest closing techniques because you are in total control, right? I don't care if this takes me 20 minutes, Josiah, to go through all these questions. So I'm setting her up mentally, right? Because when you told her 15,000 for $40, she like thinking, the heck am I going to do with $15,000? But if we massage the pain finding, all of a sudden $15,000 means that her daughters don't have to pay $15,000, even if the funeral was $20,000. You know what I'm saying? And so when you set the client up mentally and emotionally, when you ask those hard questions for her to answer, and you can do this, you really can do this when you're face to face. So when you're face to face, you can just like really squeeze out, all the pain finding questions like this. You can just really take your time to get her there to that emotional buying state where 15,000, man. I mean, if you saw 15,000 on a street, you wouldn't like let it go, right? I mean, we got to get her thinking that 15,000 is valuable for her problem, the problem that her daughters, and I could even get into way more. So wow, you must really love Cindy and Martha to want to make sure that they're not going to have to come out of their pocket. Have you ever seen those GoFundMe sites out there when people can't go for a funeral and their family has to beg everyone to kick in a couple bucks? can you see your daughters doing that? Having to deal with the embarrassment of having to pass the hat for your funeral. That is called a loaded question, Josiah, right? That is so loaded. That is so loaded that it's just like she tries to defuse that bomb of a question, right? Because how's she going to answer it? It gets to the point, doesn't it? You know, the embarrassment, you're doing it in the form of a question, but you're telling her through the form of a question. The power of asking questions is that they have to come up with the answer. You're just asking a question, right? You're not telling her, you are going to embarrass your children because they're going to have to put a GoFundMe site up there and you're just going to totally embarrass them. You do it in a question. It's like, so Mary, can you imagine your daughters having to put a GoFundMe site, begging people to pay for your funeral? That doesn't sound like you really want that for them, do you? That's a question. Do you? Oh, no. Well, look, if we figured out if your budget was such that we can get it 10,000, do you think 10,000 would help them out? So now what we're doing is it's a test close. I'm testing what that budget's going to get her. Like, look, if you can only afford $5,000, do you think $5,000 will help them? I mean, you could probably do a good cremation for $5,000. By the way, do you mind being cremated? Valid question. Because you got some people that say, no. When the Lord comes, I want to make sure I got my entire body. I don't want my body to be reconstituted from ashes. I want my whole body ready to get resurrected. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, you can really joke about it with people because you got people that just don't burn me up, man. Anyway, and then you got some people, well, I don't care, light me up, baby. Anyway, you can have fun with it, but still, the idea being that you're going to think about the value of $15,000 or 20 or 5,000 to help her children. Remember, life insurance is not for the dead person. It's for the living, right? It's one of the best I love you gifts that you can give your children. I'll even say stuff like that, gang. And I'll go, I appreciate you sitting down with me. Do you know that what you're doing here is something very special? It's like one of the best gifts that you can give your children. This is why I call it life insurance I love you gift. Because you can't obviously spend the money, but what you're doing is giving a gift of life insurance to your family so they can take care and not have to deal with the financial hassle of putting you in the ground and your other final expense stuff, right? Like people think, again, this is in the form of asking a question. People think that final expenses is purely funeral. It's like, I mean, you've got other debts, you've got other creditors, and you've got other things like, your house has to be disposed of, right, Mary? Yeah. So do you think your children are going to have to take off work and have to, kind of spend some money to be able to, dispose of all your things, do a yard sale for all your stuff, sell the house, fix up the house to sell it? I mean, wouldn't you agree that there's a lot of other costs involved besides just funeral? Okay, funeral. Okay, that's a question. And she'll go, yeah. Well, just want to make you aware that we're not just talking about burial insurance. We're talking about really all your final expenses. So wouldn't it make sense for you to, really think a little bit more beyond just the funeral? Okay. Now, look, I'm not trying to upsell, believe me. I just want her to expand her mind that it's not just the burial. So these are all setup questions to set them up emotionally and mentally to get to the point where when you lay out that $40 a month budget, okay, and so ideally, because Josiah got $40 out of her, I've been able to sell, like, I'll tell you stories. Let me tell you a story about the budget thing. So I was on the phone, I booked a mortgage protection appointment, and this woman was like 78 years old. She was older, or 75, something like that. And she goes, well, you can come over as long as as long as it's not over $50 a month. I said, ma'am, I'll do my best. My job is to help you. I've done a pretty decent job with all my previous clients to get them into a budget they can afford. I am not going to get you into something that you cannot afford. So I'll do my best to get it within $50. Now I booked the appointment. So I go over, this is in West Dayton. Okay. So I go over there. Nice lady, man. She's 70s, mid 70s. And Josiah, dude, I went after like who her loved one is. So I go, I forgot what her name was, Mary. So Mary, who's going to be the person that's going to take over your house? My daughter, Martha. Oh, wow, Martha. How old is Martha? Like, honestly, this is exactly like everything I'm teaching you is what I've done. So what does Martha do? Oh, she works at the hospital. Oh, wow. Okay. So tell me about Martha. I mean, tell me about her, you know. And so I got to know a little bit of, oh, my daughter, blah, blah. She started bragging on her daughter. It's like, wow, you must really want to make sure that she gets the house right without a mortgage. Is that right? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, well, tell me what happens if when you die and you didn't have the mortgage paid off, is she going to have to come up with the money to keep the mortgage going or sell the house? Oh, yeah, I want to make sure she gets the house. Okay. Well, now you know that, so if she has to take the house over without the, does she have enough money? Will she have enough money to pay for the mortgage? What is the mortgage payment? Right. And she said it was like 1,500. Okay. And then I go into negative reversing again. I go, well, I'm sure working at the hospital, she probably makes enough to make that $1,500 mortgage payment, right? I love negative reversing if you can't tell. So automatically, she goes, oh, no. She won't be able to afford it. It's like, oh, wow. But you still want her to have the house, right? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I want her to have the house. And you want to have the house without a mortgage? Oh, yeah, I want to make sure it's paid off. Okay. Now, at your age, this is going to be a little bit on the expensive side, right? And she goes, well, I want to make sure she's taken care of. I go, now, my job is to get it to where you can afford it. So, I'm going to do my best. Okay. I think she was like 68, actually. Anyway, so after all said and done, the policy I sold her was like $125 a month. Okay. I was not trying to upsell her, but she said $50 a month. So I went out there and I talked her through the pain finding. All of a sudden, the value of taking care of her daughter emotionally was worth like $125 a month, not 50. 50 wasn't going to get the job done. $125 would get the job done. And she made no qualms. She didn't hesitate one bit when I showed her what it would take. And she was happy. Anyway, my point being that, again, the pain finding process is so important. Now, the only way you can ask those detailed pain questions is if you detailed pain questions is if you have good bond rapport with them. Because if you don't have good bond rapport, they are not going to go there with you. You want to take them on this journey. The only way you can do that is there's trust. If they trust you, that you're not going to judge them by their answers. And so that's why you got to do the bond rapport up front. Now, again, this is when you're in the home. When you do face-to-face appointments, this is why, my closing ratio is always rocking. When you're doing telesales, you don't have the luxury of time to be able to do that, but you still got to do it. You still got to find that pain. But anyway, that is, so anyway, Josiah, there's just more there for you, but I'm glad again, the great thing you did was you got on the phone, you booked an appointment, you showed up, you went in the house, you started creating a conversation with her. It's you're early in the business, dude. So, man, I'm proud of you. Proud of that you're able to get out there and do it. So, while you are critiquing yourself, I like what you did because, Josiah put together a list of things he did right and then the things he could improve on. So you know what? Failure is only failure when you quit. You know, failure is not a failure, it's a learning opportunity. So I think what you did is you created a list of learning opportunities, and I guarantee you, dude, your next appointment, your bond and rapport is going to be right on, is going to be better, and your pain finding is going to be better. I think you're going to set the client up. As I think about it, maybe she could have been turned, but at the same time, dude, don't beat yourself up, because every top producer in the alliance, if you ask them, what could you have done better your first few appointments? And they'll tell you a list of things that they could have done better. Okay. And that's all part of the learning process, dude. Josiah, does that make sense?
Absolutely.
You got any more questions about that at all?
Nope.
Yeah, I don't mean to. I think it's just such a rich teaching opportunity. Calvin, you had a hand up. Calvin, what do you want?
I wanted to hear what Rochelle has to say. She had her hand up first.
Oh yeah. Hey, Rochelle, how you doing?
Hi, hold on, let me put this down. Sorry I'm late. I just wanted to tell Josiah, like when you brought up the cremation question, it's really good to know your demographics. And I'm just gonna tell you, people in the South and Black people don't want to get burned. I'm just gonna be honest with you. It's not like research, but even just throwing it out there. And then the 15,000, like $40 for 15,000 is really a good deal.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is they see the pennies for pennies on a day. And so what I do is at the beginning, when I build the trust, I always say, like, I educate them. So in the building the trust, I educate them on, are you familiar with how life insurance is determined? And they'll say, yeah, it's age, health, or no, help me. It's based on age, gender, and health. So the older you are, the more you're going to pay. The healthier you are, the less you're going to pay, but it's really dependent on age. So we want to keep those things in mind. And then the next question I ask, and I put that at the beginning. The next question is have you ever had to plan a funeral, or has someone close to you died? And then and they'll say, yes, my brother or whatever. And the second question is, where did they have insurance? And so you find out what their experience is, and they'll say, no, they didn't. So I really think that person could have been turned, because she didn't understand the value of 15,000 plus $40. And $40 is really inexpensive. And so I think that a lot of times people who don't have a really good knowledge about insurance, they think insurance is like the lottery, that I can just spend $1 and get $1 million. And so you kind of have to have that understanding in the back of your mind, because most people do not get insurance. Like insurance, and I have to break it down to them. I'm like, insurance is a business. It's a business, and they make money, especially for term, especially if they don't qualify for a term. I explain to them, term insurance is for people that they bank on not dying within the term. And so if you have COPD and you smoke, you're probably not going to qualify for a term, but it doesn't mean that I can't get you coverage to protect your family. Whole life insurance is based on age. So the younger you are coming in, the longer you're going to be making payments. So your payments are going to be smaller. The closer you are to knocking on death's door, the more you're going to pay. And so you kind of have to have those direct, polite conversations. So in between asking those pain questions, you're kind of sprinkling in some education to move them along the process. And then Alex said something that was so, I was like, thank you for saying that. Throughout the conversation, you need to know where she's at. So you should not get to the close and she's going to be shocked out of her mind for $15,000 for $40. So throughout the conversation, you're going to throw in, does that make sense? Okay. Like, does that make sense? Okay, I just want to make sure we're on the same page, because you're getting kind of testers. And if they just, say that doesn't make sense, then you explain a little more or ask some more questions. But before you get to the close, you should kind of know, based on your questioning, where this person's at. I mean, and that's going to be your big filler, is so you don't have that shock. And then you go through your objections. But this was the thing that came. I just wanted the objection for $40 versus the $15,000. What about this policy is not fitting for you? And she's like, well, for 40, I don't want, $15,000 is nothing. Everyone always says that. And I always go, if someone wrote you a check for $15,000, would you turn it away and say that's nothing, or would you cash it? Absolutely. So do you think your daughters, given a check for $15,000 so they don't go in debt for your funeral, would be appreciative? And they will say, yeah, but I want to leave them a little something extra. Well, if we can't leave them something extra because we can't afford it, the best thing that we can do is not leave them in debt. And if you can't do a 15,000 and you need to do a 10, at least they only have to come out of pocket 5. So you always throw it back, like, there's something you can do to help your children out, because that's what every person wants to do. And so then you come back and you go, okay, so I can bring that down I can bring it up to 25,000, but I'm not going to be at your price point of $40. I can pretty much give you what, I always tell people, you can get as much insurance as you can afford. So I'm not just saying that you only have to get 15,000, but I wanted to meet you at where you were. But let me quickly go back and let me see how much 25,000 would be. And I'm telling you, so many people will be like, oh, 25,000 is only like $65 or, whatever. And then they'll rethink it or go like, no, I'll take the 15. So don't be afraid to push it back onto them and go, oh, are you looking for more? Okay, I'll come back and I'll do a really quick quote and I'll quote you at 25,000, because you should already have in mind, even if they tell you $40, throw that out. You are giving them what they need, not the price. Like Alex said, if they want a funeral for 15,000 and they want to leave $10,000 per each child, that is the quote you're giving them, because they've written the policy. Now it's not $40, but it's exactly what they want. Does that make sense? And that's easier to sell than what they had in mind of $40. If that makes sense, because I'm telling you, and you know what? I would call her back and say, you know what? I thought about what you said, and you're right. $15,000 isn't a lot. Have you thought about a $25,000 or $30,000? Let me present this to you. All she can do is say no. But if she says yes, that's a sale. because you've already been told no. I mean, it doesn't hurt being told no twice, but I would call her back. I would definitely call her back.
Yep, absolutely. Cool. All right, gang. I got 10:09. Thanks, Rochelle. Thanks everybody for plugging in. And rock on, man. Keep
Hey,
going with strong.
Alex, Mr. Calvin's got his hands up.
Oh, Calvin.
I'll keep this short. I was thinking the same thing that Josiah has a shot of going back to. I'm okay. You still there? Everybody there? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I was doing a telesales about a couple of hours ago, and the lady wants to buy, and so I was doing the application, but with Americo, but she doesn't have email. So I said, you know what? I'm going to have to come to your house in person. And she says, fine. And so I said, you're about an hour away. You're in Berkeley. And I says, let me look at my schedule. Let me see whether I have an opening. So I said, looks like I've got a couple of openings in the afternoon. So I'm going to have to meet her in person. She wants 10,000, and her beneficiary is a close friend, she's 74, a close man.
You're breaking up there, Calvin. Can you repeat yourself? Look, Calvin.
He's
Calvin. Frozen in time.
Oh, it's my internet connection.
Okay, there you go. So
It was unstable.
okay.
So I feel I must have done something right over the phone as far as rapport goes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because the woman tracked with me. I explained why I needed her social, her height, weight, etc. And when I got stuck on the fact that she didn't have an email, so I have to come see you. So, and I'm going to build some other appointments around it tomorrow.
Oh, that's great.
What I'm going to have to ask her, I figure I need to really focus on her friend. It's a male friend of hers, and what pain questions do you think I should ask her? Because I'm going to have to kind of rebuild it all over again. I know when I get in the house.
Yeah. Yeah, just the relationship that she has, why he's a friend. And,
Okay.
Is he going to be the executor of your estate anyway? And if he is, then you really do need to leave him money to help take care of that. Right. Doesn't sound like she has any kids. So that would have been my question.
Has no spouse, no kids.
No kids. Okay. So then if he's going to be the one to pick up the pieces, then he needs, so you would ask those kind of questions like, man, you must care about him. Tell me about your relationship. Get her telling stories, dude, about how they met. How'd you meet?
Okay.
Why, you must really trust him.
Okay.
And she'll say, so you get her talking about him, and then, man, it's all but done. Now, by the way, I thought America's final expense policy allowed you to do a text signature. In other words,
She doesn't have a cell phone.
Oh, she doesn't have a cell phone?
No, it's a landline.
Oh, geez. Okay.
how
Well,
about Royal Neighbors does a phone, don't they? Phone script.
yeah. Rural Neighbors. So does Columbian Financial Group.
Yeah,
And
those are
then there was
easy.
another one. Great Western actually too. Great Western does.
Yeah, maybe it's Great Western. I was thinking of.
Yeah, Great Western
That's what-
does.
Great
But
Western has
Calvin,
what?
so I
Right.
mean, just from logistically, there are ways that but you're going to be right in front of her, baby. So I'm like all fired up for that, face to face. But so that's good. Great job, dude. Great job, and you pretty much closed her on the phone. So I think you'll be She'll be looking forward to meeting you probably, man. So
Yes, she
Anyway.
does.
cool. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate you adding that in there. Thanks, everybody. We're going to get off because I have not been home yet. So anyway, take care. God bless everybody. Thanks, everybody, for participating. Let's get on leaderboard next week. All right, let's do it,
Hey,
man. Let's blow
thank
this
you.
up. Rock on. Take care.
Thank
God
you.
bless.